It's Don here from the board. Thanks for coming along and checking out this video. Today I'm going to be reviewing another soldering iron. So the backstory on this is Danny from KSGER actually asked me if I could potentially get one of these units to review because he had sort of heard and seen some things about it and he wanted to know, my thoughts, potentially as something to recommend for new people soldering, I guess, or maybe for his own use. So I don't know what's going on across the road from me at the petrol station, but so I sent that through to Banggood, to my Banggood rep, and they said sure, not a problem. So that's what I've got here today, and that's what we are going to be looking at. So here's the package. It's pretty big. It's about half a kilo to about a pound, thereabouts. 0.466. I'm getting very distracted by what's going on outside. There's construction that's happening next door for an apartment building, and it could be the cement truck because they've got all their rebar and whatnot in, and they might be pouring. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, let's have a look at what we are looking at. So here is the actual listing on Banggood. It's the KSGER, or I don't know how you want to pronounce it, Mini V2 T12 soldering station with an XA grade T12K electric soldering iron tips, aluminium alloy 9501 handle. Wow, the mouthful titles for Banggood just never seem to change. So right now you can see there's a bit of a special on, but the normal listed price is $67.48. Now putting that into comparison, it is actually, I think, cheaper than the recommended retail price of the TS80 or the TS100, or at least very similar ballpark. It is a little bit different compared to the TS80 and 100 in that it actually has a station that the soldering iron plugs into. It's got a dial for control, and you can see it's got obviously a digital display. Now the kit is meant to come with the iron, one tip, the actual station, and a power pack with it. As you can see, there was no options on what kind of tip that you actually get with it, but it looks like it's a chiseled tip. But I'm assuming that this type of tip you could probably get replacements for to suit different styles of tips. So it's got some menu options and things like that in it. Description wise, it doesn't tell you very much. 110 to 240, 24 volt, 150 to 480. It's a good range. And then it's just pictures of the menus. So it doesn't say very much about it at all. All right, let's get across and open it up. So I've got some solder over here on this side. There's my iron stand, and then I've got my brass cleaning for when we get to that point. And what I'm also doing is I've got this, which you would have already seen before if you keep up with the channel, which is essentially a soldering iron temperature tester, so we can see how accurate this device claims to be against I suppose the accuracy of the other irons I've checked on it, or the other iron, only one, because yeah, I still don't know how calibrated that tester is. All right, so let's open up the outer package. There's a adapter, and then the inner package has another bag. That can go. So there's the SKU, packaged in China, made in China. Let's cut that tape. Alright. It's pretty no frills, as you can see, no fancy box. There's the cable, the handle, and the actual tip. So there's the shape K, the 12T-K. We've got the base station, and we've got the power pack right there. Alright, so I guess the first thing is let's pull that out. It is a 2.5 amp 250 50 volt plug. So in theory I should be able to just put that straight in and it can go into Australian mains, but there is no ground on that. So what I might, well, it's interesting because, you know, it's a switching adapter and it does take 110 to 240. 24 volt, 3 amps. So that's what it's outputting. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. And then the base station's very light. It's very, very small. And here it is. Look at it. It's tiny. Absolutely tiny. So there's the voltage in, and there's a on-off switch there, which is upside down. Okay. And then we've got a dial, which is a rotary encoder of some kind, and it presses downwards as well. So that's pretty standard. And I've just gone and pulled that up so you can see it's just a pretty standard kind of encoder, nothing special. There's no markings on it, so you know, turning it whatnot, the reference point, it doesn't really matter. In terms of dimensions, it's, as I said, it's quite small. It fits like, you know, in the palm of your hand. So we're looking at what's that, just under 90 mil, 89 mil thereabouts, and including the rubber bump on feet is 40 high, and if you include all the way across from the back of the switch to the front, it's about 60 wide. So it's a very small footprint. You could definitely easily pack this up and chuck it into a backpack, you know, with all of this stuff, right? It doesn't take up a lot of space. Okay, now let's get into the cable and handle and the tip. More plastic. All right, so the handle, this is rubberized. It spins. It unscrews even. That's just a collar, I suppose. It's just got a bit of heat protection and resistance there, and the tip will just go all the way down into there. So that's cool. I suppose if it gets damaged or you need to replace it, then that's available. But it is a rubberized grip. It's actually quite a small pencil grip. It's not as big and fat and chunky compared to, say, the Harco FX 888 series, the D. So it's pretty flexy, but it's got a bit of memory to it. It's got a bit of bounce, so you kind of have to be careful about that. And then the end is a 5-pin connector. So that's and then there's a reference mark there, of course, for the right orientation. Plug that in all the way in, and we'll lock it down. There you go. Let's undo that. Put that aside. Let's undo this one and the other one. Now I will turn on like a little USB fan that I've got next to me, so I do apologize if it gets a bit noisy. Now this power cable is actually kind of short, so I actually have a power board below here, which, you know, it would make it, but it wouldn't be convenient having it on that side of me. So I've got a transformer actually over here, which is a 110 switching, which I use for the TS80. So I'm actually going to put this in. So it's going to go from 240 to 110 back through this into 24 volts. Bit convoluted. Yes, it's not energy efficient because I'm going to lose some energy along the way, but I'm kind of going to do this just for cable convenience. But you do have to be mindful it's not a very long cable, and because it's hardwired into this power pack, and the quality of that's a bit shonky. Look at that. That's not providing much strain relief at all. I'd be concerned about putting too much stress on that. So yeah, just watch out. And then that will go into the back of this. Alright, so that's pretty easy. And then let's if I go over there, it'll cross in front of me, but that's actually alright for the moment. And then I'll put that, because now I've got the extra length. I can put that beneath me. Okay, so that's all good to go. Now let's have a look at this tip. This is a lead-free soldering tip. Comply with reduction of hazardous substances. It's fully sealed and it's got a tear notch on the packet here. I'm not quite sure what these symbols are, but it looks like an old school copper or bronze type of soldering iron. But let's crack it open. There we go, K12. So it tells me that it's a 12. It's got a bit of paper here. Surely that's going to burn. I don't know if that was necessarily the best place to be putting it. It's very long, but then again, it's got to go all the way down into the socket somewhere. So if I go, whoosh, okay, there you go. Now, of course, if I want to take that out and unscrew this, that's yeah, it's almost like they put this in as an afterthought because they were like, we want to use these tips. But that's interesting because look at that, the actual collar here has this sitting further than the maximum depth that it can seat into, and of course that's not stable at all, so that keeps that in place. So alright, let's put it together as intended. Now, because it's a new tip, I'm expecting it's going to smoke a bit. The tip itself is not super duper clean or sharp. The edge is already got a bit of sort of chipping on it. But you know, once you get some solder on it, then it's probably okay. Pretty thick. Alright, so in it goes all the way. Okay, so let's just put that in there because I can. Yo. Focus. Don't want to do it. My trusty ruler of focus. Alright, so here we go. So power on here. Power is on. Ooh. That did not like it. So, and this is what I'm talking about, right? The cable length is a bit of an issue. Let's just put it over there for the moment. And then power on. Okay, so we've got red power on the back. And it's got an error. Set to 300. Okay. (2013) set temp 300. Boost. So I can drop the temperature. I wonder if it's because I'm using 110. Alright, so let's just turn that off. Let's turn off the 110. And let's go to 240. Which, I don't know, am I doing something wrong here? Now, you'll notice when I open the packaging, there is 0 instructions for this device. There's no manuals or paperwork at all for it, which of course makes it quite challenging on trying to figure out what we're meant to be doing. Okay, so we're now hooked up directly to 240. That's in, that's all the way in. We have the same error. Okay, let's undo that. That's not hot at all. That's all the way in. Let's pull that out. Now, there's nothing electrically here in the handle because that's just all insulation material. There's a silicone sleeve there, right, that I can actually pull at. So I don't think the paper here is making an impact. So unless if the tip is faulty, then let's just take the tip out and turn it on. So we've got an error. It's not detecting. Oh. So maybe the tip is faulty. Okay. Let's try that again. Unless if the tip is not all the way in because this sleeve is stopping it from going all the way in. Because if you remember, I said that this actually goes in further than it should. So I push that sleeve in. It goes a little bit further. And then I'll put that all the way in. And then as it hits the bottom, it should start to push this tip back out. Okay. So as you can see, that collar that was there previously is actually seated inside that silicone. So let's see if that helps. There we go. Okay, we have success. So it looks like what's happened. What the heck? Okay, so yeah, I can feel that heating up. Is that you have to make sure the tip goes all the way seated in, and you're going to have to push it past that silicone lip. Right, so that's something to be aware of if you get one of these units. Now, in terms of rotation, the pen has a natural hang to it because of the way that the silicone bends, and the tip right now is, oh, it's alright, I've got it at an okay angle. So let's just sit that there, and we're looking at 301 at the moment. This power pack is, there we go, let's sit that there. Just makes it, if I adjust that, okay. So I have no idea what these boosts set. If I press it, I can raise the temperature, but let's just leave that there. Maybe if I press and hold it. There we go. Okay, so we've got standby, sleep, boost, cold end, tip. What do I see in the tip? Okay, so it will try and recognize the tip. What have I got in here? I've got a K-type. So you can see it's already got a tick there. So there's a couple of different tips, ILS tip, JO2 tip, that it kind of detects or enables. Alright, so how do I go back? Do I press it? Yep. Okay. Stepping, password, screensaver, buzzer, voltage, low voltage, power on, language, date, time, some adjustments, and exit. Okay, so it's reading stable now, about 300. I'm not really sure what the percentage is. That's the time, which I'm not going to bother worrying about setting up. It reckons it's a JO2 tip. and ambient temperature is about 34 degrees, which is actually probably about right. It's meant to be quite hot today here. Okay, so let's put some solder onto it. So wow, this handle's getting quite warm at 300, including the silicone part. So, woo-wee! Okay, so the barrel is hot enough to melt solder, not just the tip. Not just the tip. So the tip is melting the solder, which is fine. You want that to happen. You expect that to happen. But this part is also melting the solder. That's some significant heat loss going on, and that's a bit of a worry, because that's going to creep up on you. That's going to creep up on you real good, and it's going to get very warm. It's quite warm already at 300. So it's a bit of a worry. Let's turn this guy on. And reading 27 degrees. And we will put some fresh solder onto this. It's reading 280, 283, 284. So it's really interesting that it's actually reading lower than what's being displayed here. Now, and this is part of why I was saying that fresh solder is really important on this, because oxidized solder will obviously reduce the heat capacity. 288, 289, 288. Okay, so it's actually still reading lower than 300, but my solder's melting on it quite easily. So yeah, how much do you want to trust what it says here versus what it's saying here? Bit dubious, but it gives you an idea at least that if your soldering iron is kind of in the ballpark. So it's potentially reading about 10-15 degrees lower on the tip compared to what the iron's internal thermocouple is. And that's not surprising, because if it reckons it's cranking out heat at 300 and the PT inside it is detecting 300, by the time it gets to the end tip and then transfer to that, 15 degrees loss is actually quite reasonable. So if you want to ensure that you've got 300 at the tip, then, well, let's raise this up to 315. So I'm taking it up now to 315. Okay, and it's starting to boost. And there it goes. So it reckons it's now at 315. We'll let it stabilize a little bit. And let's try that again. So let's put some fresh solder on. Turn that off. Melt that down, and let's feed some fresh solder. Look at that. 302. Okay, so we're actually 303, 302. So we're pretty good in regards to adjusting that to what we're actually displaying here. So it kind of gives me some confidence between the two that at least the relative scales work quite well, and that this unit is reproducing what is expected. You know, we wanted a 15-degree jump, and right now it actually says 316. So we actually got 17 units of jump because it made it to 302 instead of 301, which would have been the 16. So, you know, I think this one's okay. When I say this one, I mean this mini V2 soldering iron. It's quite comfortable in the hand as far as the shape and size goes. The only thing that I've got worry about is the heat, because it's quite warm in my hand already, and it's right here. The back of it's not warm, but just on the logo it's starting to warm up, and it runs all the way through, and it is quite warm on that silicone. And I'm not even running at 350 or 400 degrees. This is capable of going up to 480 supposedly. So if you're going to be doing prolonged periods of soldering, then it may actually start to get quite uncomfortable as the heat creeps up into this unit. That's, I suppose, the sacrifice of having such a thin handle. There's not a lot of options for them to dissipate the heat, but at the same time, this T12 length tip is massive. And the fact that there's no sort of heat shielding up here to help pull that heat away is kind of a flaw. The tip's okay. It's got a good cut to it, even though it was a little bit notched and it wasn't super smooth, but it's melting the solder quite nicely, and I would expect that if I'm going to be building a keyboard with it, it shouldn't have any issues with it whatsoever. Alrighty, well, I'm gonna leave that on because I want to repair my headphones. Don't have a keyboard at the moment to put together, so I'm not going to go down that path, but it's not a headphone fixing channel, so we're going to leave that there. But I thought I might just give that a whirl since I've got it set up. So thank you very much to Banggood for sending me this unit, and of course to Danny for asking to actually have this to check it out. I think as far as a budget desk setup goes, it will probably be quite capable. I like the unit and the display. Certainly, it's not built in there, so you can always constantly see what's going on, and the adjustment is easy. I do wish that it came with a manual, and I do wish that the cable length and the cable quality on this power pack is a little bit better, because it's quite a worry, because this is super loose and jiggling. 240 volt is never something that you want to play with, and even output to this on this is actually more solid than what's on this. I've just touched that red. Woohoo! Wow, that red power button is hot. That red power button is crazy hot. That's dangerous. That is. I'm not even touching it, and I can feel that heat radiating off it. The chassis is fine. Whatever LED that they're putting in there, or indicator light, that is not suitable, because that button is really hot. That actually makes me revise my thoughts on this quite a bit, because it shouldn't be hot like that. Someone's going to burn themselves on it. Someone is going to burn themselves on that. So as long as you're aware of that and you're an adult, then you'll be okay. I don't know what they can do about that. I don't know if I want to open this up and have a look at what they've done about it, but just beware that that switch gets hot enough that it will burn you. Hot enough that it'll burn you. Alright, I'm still going to leave it on because I still want to fix my headphones, but I'm going to end the video there. If you want to check it out for yourself, there's obviously going to be a Banggood link below for you to check out. And if you like this kind of stuff and you want to see me review more gadgets, more DIY electronic stuff, whatever it is that is related to our keyboard world, then please hit that like button below. Leave me a comment on what you think of this, as well as if there's anything particular that you would like me to review, because if it's on Banggood's catalog, then of course I can always make a request and see what they say. If you want to help me out, please of course hit that subscribe button, because it just does. And hit that bell button if you want to have notifications for the next video that we release. So thank you again for checking out the video, and of course, there we go. Until next time, happy clacking.